Tennessee chapter of the Nature Conservancy, and I have the distinct pleasure to introduce our first speaker. Even though we just met John Cicotti last night, we've been working with his staff from Brookfield for the last 6 months, and it has been a true pleasure. After meeting Mr. Cicotti last night, his staff really exemplifies the kind of guy he is and the way he conducts himself with partners. He has a long resume, so I'm going to cut it pretty short, but I will tell you a couple of things about him. He's from Manhattan. He runs more operations of Brookfield than just the renewable energies part. He serves on multiple nonprofit groups around the country, including the 9/11 Memorial for the World Trade Center. The thing I liked the most about him last night was that he told me he likes to quail hunt in Tennessee. So I think that is his #1 resume builder for us here. Would you guys please give him a warm Tennessee welcome, Mr. John?
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I am very happy to be here today, and I'm very glad to have this opportunity to acknowledge Brookfield's introduction to Tennessee. Obviously, this is a happy event. We're giving away 4,000 acres for the purpose of conservation and for the purpose of wildlife growth, and it's a real opportunity for us. Before I go any further, I'd just like to acknowledge some people. The leadership, the entire leadership of the Brookfield Power Company is here today. Harry, why don't you stand? Harry Goldcup, Dan White, Dan, Tom Beatty, and David Hams. If you have any problems, see them. Don't see them. I'm the chairman. I used to be the president. That means I do nothing. They do everything. I also like to acknowledge that today we have the Tennessee Commissioner of Tourism, Susan Whitaker. We have Dale Dittmanson with the National Park Service. Joseph Morris, also with the National Park Service. State Senator Doug Orby, State Senator Art Swan, State Senator Bob Ramsey, Monroe County Mayor Tim Yates. Of course, we have the Senator and we have Congressman John Duncan, both of whom are going to speak. I'll have a little more to say about the Senator when I introduce him. I want to first tell you a little bit about Brookfield. We have a long tradition of involvement in Canada and elsewhere in North America. I became involved with them when they acquired, and I still maintain and operate 78 dams in the state of New York. We're a major operator and generator of hydropower all over the United States and growing. We're a company that believes in greening and believes in renewable power, even to the point we are presently under construction the largest windmill operation in the United States in the deserts of Southern California. We do all of this with sensitivity to the environment and with an understanding of the importance of making our resources compatible with hunting and fishing. Now, to demonstrate my bona fides with regard to that, I am here today at great sacrifice because today is the opening day of the turkey season in New York City. So you can tell that I really am committed to doing the right thing. We build hydro facilities all over the world. In Brazil, we're presently have under construction 3 hydro facilities, and we've been a major investor in hydro in South America. Now, we are developing relationships with Alcoa, with the Tennessee governmental infrastructure, with the people in this community, and we look forward to strengthening those relationships and having them grow as we go forward. I want to take a minute now to introduce Senator Lamar Alexander. It's a little bit silly for me to introduce the senator when you consider all he's done for the state of New York and for the people of the United States. But we have a few things in common, believe it or not. The senator won a scholarship to one of the finest law schools in America, New York University Law School. He once told me that he thought he was the, I hope he doesn't get upset telling the secret, that he got in under the hillbilly quota. But that school is located on a beautiful park called Washington Square Park. I went to primary school on the north side of the park, and he attended the law school on the south side of the park, and I grew up in the very community where the law school is located. And I think if he were talking off the record, he'd tell you he had a wonderful 4 years in that school. So we have that in common. We have something else in common related to my experience in coming in from the highway, and I saw the Lamar Alexander Highway. Now, this is important, or Parkway, excuse me, I should have said Parkway. A friend of mine, Ed Koch, who recently died, told me that the greatest thrill is having something named after you while you're still alive to enjoy it, and he did. They named the Queensboro Bridge after him, and he proceeded to go around telling everybody it was my bridge. So I have the misfortune, or fortune, depending on your perspective, to have a park named after me located on Broadway and Liberty Street. You may have heard about this park. It was occupied during the... and it caused me a great deal of anguish, and it made me somewhat historically famous. Now, if the senator would like to trade his highway for my park, I'm more than happy to do that. I should also tell you the truth. I really didn't come for any of the reasons I said. I actually came on a scouting expedition for fishing and hunting. I accomplished that last night because of the people from the Nature Conservancy and the men in the dam today talking to the boat. I have 7 invitations to fish and 2 to hunt turkey and 1 to hunt quail. Now, I'm going away as satisfied. As I said, I couldn't say very much about Lamar Alexander that most of you don't know. But I'm going to try and tell you something that's very meaningful to understanding a great statesman. We in New York have suffered terribly in the last 11 years. My office was blown to pieces on 9/11. I escaped, luckily, along with members of my staff. And most recently, the people of New Jersey and New York suffered grievously. They lost their lives, their homes were shattered, their lives were completely disrupted, and that situation is going to take a long time to rectify, and it's painful. If you go to the Rockaways or Staten Island or along the Jersey Shore, you see areas totally wiped out. Looks like the pictures of Berlin after the Second World War. Now, Lamar Alexander was a leader in a bipartisan spirit, which is what we need, in my view, to turn America around. In a bipartisan spirit to help obtain the federal money for those people and for the failure of their infrastructure. He was willing to extend his hand across the aisle and support the legislation that will allow those people either to resettle or to regain their homes, which is not going to be easy. So I would like to introduce Senator Lamar Alexander, the servant of the people of Tennessee and the United States, and a great American. Thank you very much.
John, I was glad to vote to help the people of New York. We might get in trouble one day ourselves and need a little help from you. So we're all part of one big country. This is a wonderful day. As far as turkey hunting goes, as we were driving in, they're just sitting under the Brookfield signs down. You don't have to go hunt them in Tennessee. They're all over the place. If you need a fishing license, if you need a hunting or fishing license, Ed Carter's here. He'll tell you before you leave. And as far as trading your part from my road, if Art Swan's here, he led the effort to name the Lamar Alexander Parkway after I was governor. I asked that nothing be named after me because I was younger at the time, and I thought that was for dead people. But I found out I still need some sort of introduction because right after I was elected to the United States Senate, I was driving along the Lamar Alexander Parkway, and Honey was in Nashville, and I didn't have anything for breakfast, so I stopped to get some eggs and bacon at the little store along the side of the road, and I realized I had no cash. So I got my billfold and pulled out my credit card, and I handed it to the young lady behind the desk, and she looked at it, looked at me, and she said, "May I ask you a question?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Was you named after this road?" I don't think I'll take it. We especially welcome members of the Nature Conservancy Board here. They're from all over the country, and they've done an awful lot of good work in Tennessee, and we're grateful to you to do that. And I'm going to get to introduce John Duncan in just a minute. Martin, we're glad to have you here. Governor Haslam is a conservationist and a good East Tennessean, and his role in this is very important. Egypt has its pyramids. Italy has its art. England has its history. And the United States has the great American outdoors. And no part of it is more majestic nor more popular than the land between the Great Smoky Mountain National Park and the Cherokee National Forest. So we are deeply grateful to John Zuccotti and to Brookfield for this generous gift to the Nature Conservancy, which was arranged by the Conservancy and a group of other conservation groups, and which will end up with the Cherokee National Forest and the Tennessee Wildlife Resources, and which will mean more hunting, more boating, more fishing, more hiking, more outdoors, and it'll mean more jobs, more money coming into this area. We in this area know that. We've prospered because of the visitors who come in. When I first met John Zuccotti and the Brookfield people, I didn't know what to think. I've lived long enough to be skeptical of things that sound too good to be true, and this sounded too good to be true. Because what in fact they were saying was they're going to take this 4,000 acres and give it to us, the people, to use. We were all here 9 years ago, many of us. Many of the same groups worked on this to help Alcoa start this by giving 10,000 acres of its property in exchange for relicensing these dams on the Little Tennessee River. So 6,000 acres went to the national park. That was great. But 4,000 acres we weren't sure about. It was uncertain what would happen to them. And all of us can imagine a number of things which wouldn't have been very desirable. I can't think of anything better than the result that has happened today. It's a great story, really. Alcoa came here 100 years ago. The mayor of Maryville, Mr. Mitchell was, I think, his name, persuaded them to build an aluminum plant. They were interested in the cheap electricity that came from water on dams they could build on the river coming out of the mountains. He was tarred and feathered, the mayor, and run out of town by local people who didn't want the area changed. Of course, it's a good thing they came because it did change the whole area and changed it for the better. And one of Alcoa's great contributions was this property 10 years ago. So 9 years ago, Congressman Duncan and I introduced legislation after a number of you all had worked for years to work out something with Alcoa to get the 10,000 acres donated. And then today, we have Brookfield coming in and say, as to those 4,000 acres, here it is. We're going to give it to the people of East Tennessee, and then we're going to manage it in a way that you can enjoy and protect. So we're very grateful for that. I know this area well, as many people around here do. In fact, John, I went on my first snipe hunt not far away. If any of these guys offers to take you on a snipe hunt, talk to me first. And I used to come up with the McDade family to the Skona Lodge, which is around here when Alcoa had this wonderful lodge with an 8-hole golf course and 9-hole golf course. Morrison, Vice President Barkley came in here, and Billy Graham came, and Governor Clinton came, all the dignitaries came from all over the world. So it's a great, great area. So on behalf of the people in this area, and you're right, when I went to New York University Law School, that was my first visit ever to New York City. And it was a cultural shock. So I learned quite a bit while I was there. But on behalf of all of us here who love these mountains and love the outdoors, we're grateful to you and the Brookfield properties. You are off to a running start to be the most admired new citizen of the state of Tennessee. Thank you very much. Brookfield, and I needed to know anything about this area, and I had one telephone call to make, I'd call Congressman John J. Duncan Jr. because he knows this territory better than anybody alive. He's been our congressman for a long time. He knows us personally. He played a major role in what's happening today because in 2004 he passed in the House the legislation that made this whole relicensing possible, which has resulted in this gift. He's one of the leaders of the United States Congress and a great friend of mine. It's my honor to introduce to you our Congressman, Jimmy Duncan.
Thank you very much, Lamar. It's an honor for me to be here with all of you today, and especially with our guests from Brookfield. And I appreciate Lamar Alexander. There are very few men in this world that I admire and respect more than Lamar Alexander. Many senators, it seems to me, spend most of their time trying to get publicity. Lamar Alexander spends his time getting things done for the people of Tennessee and the people of this nation, and I really admire Senator Alexander. I appreciate those kind things he said about me. I will tell you, I found out many times in many different ways that I do need to be introduced, and I know that most of you have never heard me speak before, but I will tell you that several years ago, I presented a flag to the Rogers Creek Elementary School in my district, and after I'd done that, to all the kids out in front of the school, one of the first grade teachers asked me to come by and stop in her, would I come by her class? And I went in and she said, now boys and girls, do you remember who this is? I'd just spoken to him out in front, and one little fellow raised his hand and in kind of a scared voice, he said, are you the man on the nickel? But speaking of 6-year-olds, I will never forget that Lamar and I go way back. In fact, I was his second district campaign manager and gang lawyer when he first ran for governor in 1974. And the people made a bad mistake then and elected another man governor, but he was elected as our governor 4 years later in 78. Well, right after that, I read in the paper that they had interviewed a group of 6-year-olds or first graders from Savannah, Tennessee, and asked them who was Lamar Alexander. And one little boy said he thought he was the fire chief. One little boy, of all things, said his mother told him that he was a town drunk. I've always remembered that the only one who got it right, a little girl named Kathleen Gibbs, and I've never forgotten her name because what she said, she said, he's the man we just elected governor, and they said, how did you know? Are you a Republican? And she said, no, I'm a Gibbs. I always really like that answer. Let me just say very quickly, Lamar deserves all the credit for this. He came to me and asked me to introduce this bill in the House, and it had to go through 2 committees in the House, but this was his bill, and it's just another example of his great leadership. I want to welcome the Brookfield people here. This little part of East Tennessee has been one of the most popular places to move to in the whole country for over 40 years now, and about half of my 750,000 constituents have moved here from someplace else, and we welcome people moving in. It's great to represent an area that's popular and growing instead of an area that's dying. As I read about 3 years ago that 2/3 of the counties in the U.S. are losing population, and that's certainly not here. I can tell you that there are now 401 units in the National Park System. Probably many of those you would be surprised to know they're part of the National Park System, and probably 300 or more get very little visitation in the course of the year, but the Smokies are certainly the great exception to that rule. This is, of course, as all of you know, the most popular visited national park by far in the whole country. In fact, the next two or three most popular ones really don't come close. Several years ago, I got the money to help obtain or get the road fixed for the Cherahela Skyway, and became the first chairman of what was called the Scenic Byways Caucus in the Congress. And I can tell you that the Cherokee National Forest and the Cherahela Skyway is becoming more and more popular all the time. It has views that, in my opinion, rival the Smokies. And so to combine the attractions of the Cherokee National Forest and the Cherahela Skyway with the Smokies is, in my opinion, it's the way to go. So I thank you very much, all of you, for taking time out of your very busy schedules to be here and for allowing me to be a small part of this day. And now I have the privilege of introducing the Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, Mr. Bob Martineau. It was a very distinguished lawyer. He was a lawyer for the Environmental Protection Agency, and he then became a very respected lawyer in Nashville in private practice, and since January of 2011 has been the commissioner for the state of Tennessee. I told him that I had a first cousin who graduated from the same law school, the University of Cincinnati, where he's originally from, and it's certainly an honor to have him and introduce him to you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman, for that nice introduction, and thank you, Senator and Congressman and John, for your leadership and vision to bring this about today. And I really want to thank you on behalf of Governor Haslam. Thank everyone who's been a partner in making this day a reality and making this project move forward. It's a great symbol of our partnership, of collaboration, and pulling public and private interests together to preserve a beautiful piece of land for future generations. And that's really what is one of the treasures here, that somebody had the vision years ago to make this happen and put it in place and get the legislation passed so that we can ensure and protect this kind of land for future generations. So I just want to welcome everybody and thank you on behalf of the state of Tennessee and on behalf of Governor Haslam, who couldn't be here today, for bringing this about, and whoever ordered the weather. This is a Chamber of Commerce day. We couldn't have done any better. A beautiful setting to be here, and thank you all for that. And it's my pleasure now to introduce Ed Carter, who is the longtime director of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, who will be one of the partners who will take stewardship of this land going forward into the future. As you all have heard, his agency protects and preserves the land for hunting and fishing and adding to the recreational uses of those properties throughout the state. And this will be another property that his agency and his team can work with. And so it's my pleasure now to introduce Ed Carter. Thank you.
Well, what a day, and thanks for being here. There's so many people to thank. I guess I could back up for a second and say two things. I wasn't sure what the dress code was going to be today, so I wore my other shirt. I thought I could take my coat off and I would be in proper style. And if that didn't work, I had a red and black shirt, kind of flannel. And then I looked at how long we had to speak, and I said, boy, I can thank a lot of people in 30 minutes. And Nina said, "That's you got your decimal in the wrong place. That's 3, and if you want to move it one more place to the left, that's fine too." Anyway, it is a great thing. Mr. Cotty, I'll just tell you that our turkey season has been going on since March. We've got another couple of weeks left to go, and we can teach you how to cluck and gobble with a southern accent. do appreciate it. Obviously, thanks to Brookfield. This is one of those dreams come true when we talked for several years about what it would be like maybe if we could acquire part of this property and even some more that's still out there that may be up for grabs. What a great thing that would be for the people of Tennessee. And now that that's coming to pass, it's almost unbelievable. And the Congressman Duncan, all that they do for us in Washington, Senator Alexander, every time I turn around, I'm running into him somewhere either about renewing fish hatcheries or tract of land called Rocky Fork or funding for our state wildlife action plan for species of greatest conservation need, and now the help in acquiring Tapoco. So this is really great, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this is kind of personal for me as well. This tract of land here, when I was growing up, I hunted and I fished, I camped. Dad and I actually were on the lake out here one day. We ran out of gas on the other side. Didn't have a paddle in the boat, so we took all of our shirts and pretty much down to everything we had, stuck them in a dip net and paddled back across the lake with the dip net. So that told me to be resourceful in this area, and it also taught me how long it takes to get across this area. And my great-great-grandmother was Cherokee, and according to all of our historical records, lived here, married a person by the name of Ward. We're in the Cherokee Nation, and the name Ward carries some special significance for Nancy Ward. So I have lots of ties to that. Mom and Dad are buried just across the bluff almost from you here, from a little place called West Miller's Cove that some folks here may know about. So it has lots of special significance. Beyond that, though, it's a special place to all the Tennesseans, whether you live in this area or whether it's a place you can come from some of our adjoining states or some of the other places within the state. We talk a lot in the agency, one of the greatest gifts we can give, one of the greatest legacies we can leave is land that's preserved for people to recreate on and for wildlife to exist on, and to put the two in unison in some kind of well-managed plan. And I just want to pledge to you today that the people that work with me and the people that work with all of our other agencies that are here from the federal side and from the state side, we can pledge to you that that's what will happen. It will be a plan that everybody can live with, that will preserve the land and preserve the wildlife that lives there too. It's such a compliment to the Cherokee National Forest and to the national parks that it's all in the same area. And we also have Foothills Wildlife Management Area that almost touches this particular piece of land. So our guys that are here today, I appreciate what they've been doing and what they'll do in the future. I'll just finish by saying that these things don't happen without partnerships. That's very obvious of what's happening here today from our elected leaders, both on the state side and to the federal side. Those people that are non-government organizations that are here, like the Tennessee Wildlife Federation and Nature Conservancy and the Conservation Fund and many others that I could go on to mention. Without that kind of help, without that kind of cooperation, things like this would not happen. And it's going to be something that we can look at and say, you know, there are ways to work together, and it's evident in Tennessee, and it spills out into other states. So I'll just kind of end up with saying TDEC and tourism, the commissioners from both of those partners are very good friends of ours. We work together in many mutual goals. As I mentioned, the Park Service, the Cherokee National Forest, and all the other folks, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, all the people that come together here have been very special in making all this happen. We're working with another piece of property or two called Skinner Mountain down there. We're working with the Nature Conservancy on, which will add about another 4,000 acres to that belongs to the state of Tennessee. So all I can do right now is say we're just kind of giddy. I know that's a technical term, but in any case, we're really just so happy, so pleased at what's yet to come and things that are already here and things that are in place. Special to me, especially with Tennessee, especially to the Wildlife Resources Agency. Thanks to Nature Conservancy, thanks to Brookfield and all the other people that made this happen. We're in your debt, and we promise you that we'll make you proud before we go from here.
Me, but as I said earlier, my name is Gina Hancock. I'm the state director for the Tennessee chapter of the Nature Conservancy. And it's truly humbling to be here with you today. To share this podium with Senator Lamar Alexander in such an iconic place is a real career high for me. It's also an honor to share this program with Jerry Wolf, the spiritual leader of the of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation. You know, doing this interaction with Brookfield is what the Nature Conservancy is all about. And it's really popular lately to say that you can either have economic development or you can protect special places, but you can't do both. And the Nature Conservancy has maintained for years that that's a false choice. And Brookfield's proving that today. They're able to meet their economic needs, their business model, while at the same time working with the Nature Conservancy and our state and federal officials to make a moment for Tennessee, for now and for the future. We call this track Bridging the Smokies because it connects the Great Smoky Mountains National Park to the Cherokee National Forest. And conserving the Smoky Mountains is good for people, good for our economy, good for our health, and it presents amazing recreational opportunities. This place is thick with history. And if you just take a moment and listen, you can hear the voices speaking to us. You can hear the Cherokee, you can hear the early settlers. If you listen even closer, you can hear the voices of the Tennesseans who fought, begged, borrowed, stole to set this land aside. They had a big vision, and we see it all around us today. We're a tourist destination because of them, and there are amazing critters that live here because of them. We're building on their work. We're adding to the conservation legacy of the Southern Blue Ridge today. It is truly humbling to be here with you, Bridging the Smokies. Thank y'all.
Good afternoon, I'm Dan White from Brookfield. Thank you, Gina. We're going to close the day with a ceremonial signing of the documents that will transfer these assets from us to the Nature Conservancy so that they can then transfer to the Resource Agency. A couple of people I want to thank before we do that. First of all, I want to thank the men and women who work here every day at Brookfield. They cleaned up their room well, don't you think? And they put this together, so thank you guys. We Miss Olivia fed us today, and it was great food. Sarah, Miss Olivia says that the chocolate pie came from Miss Honey. It's her recipe, but I don't know if that's true. That's true. Okay. Joe and his band, thank you. So thank you. And of course, the Holy Man will end this ceremony for us, and we're so grateful to have you here. Let me just say one other thing, and this is directed to the Senator. So the two counterparties have been working on this deal since we came to see you. And your staff has been absolutely magnificent. They've cajoled us and counseled us and kept us in line, and we appreciate it. So thank you for that. So the documents will now be signed. Harry Goldgut, who is the chairman of Brookfield Renewable Energy Partners, a senior managing director of Brookfield Asset Management, and the global head of our utilities and power platform will sign for Brookfield. Gina will sign for the Nature Conservancy, and the Senator has agreed to witness their signatures. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you would go to the table.
Congressman?
This is Sterling.